I saw the colours, and I heard the music, the beautiful music that was the surround, and I heard the dialogue like it was in my head. And there's a main character whose eyes through whom I am seeing his character. I'm telling his story, and he's showing me things. So he's taking me on this journey, a voyage into the different levels of the heavenly realms.
Stephen Chong, my guest, is a Far North Queensland Australian-based author who draws his inspirations from life's themes that really they relate to us all. Love, grief, struggle, overcoming obstacles, culminating in his 6 inspirational novels and multiple short stories. The reason Stephen is here today is that he has a very untypical NDE, near-death experience. Perhaps really not even clinically an NDE, but rather something altogether really difficult to quickly categorize, but wholly worthy of listening to as it sheds light on our soul's journey, our soul's purpose, and what he uniquely has learned about the afterlife. Welcome, Stephen.
Kristin, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
And you have been sharing, you are a messenger now. You've been on lots of different podcasts and your book is starting to reach people. So set the stage, if you will. How did this all start?
Oh my goodness. Let us go back just on 4 years ago now. And just prior to that time of this accident, which I will describe, I'd retired. I'd said, enough, it's time to plant tomatoes in the garden. But as you do when you're in your 60s, you still think yourself bulletproof. So I'm up about 15 feet on cleaning out the gutters at the house. And we're very remote here. We're in rainforest. No near neighbours, surrounded by trees. And the ladder slipped. And I've fallen, hit the ground in one big heap. And I couldn't feel anything below the neck. And I thought, Stephen, you are in a deal of trouble here. But I've got to tell you, the gods were to favour, because this particular morning, my wife happened to be here. And generally, it's a Saturday morning. Generally, she's away. So she heard me scream and come to my rescue. And here we are. Here we stand. All is well. But I must say that the depth of the experience did not occur at that time. I didn't, as I guess whatever a traditional NDE is, you float off and see to this death process. It was in the period of rehabilitation where I had this title of a book like a hamster wheel in my head, and I knew what it was. I knew where it was coming from, and I denied it. Thrice denied. So, no, leave me alone. I'm done. But eventually, I've said okay to the universe, because I knew where it was coming from.
Well, let me slow you there. Where was it coming from? Where was it coming from? You said the universe.
To the universe, to this God, this the spirit. The spirit's telling me, Stephen, you have a higher purpose. I knew that, so I had to make a choice, and the choice was either I could stay retired, or I could buy into whatever this process was to reveal.
Okay.
So I did, and I bought in, and I said, okay, I will write this book, whatever it is. But the afterlife, what do I know? I know nothing. So the two elements there that were critical for me was a burden of choice. So I chose to follow this pathway, and I trusted. Having bought into this process, I trusted implicitly that whatever it was to be would be there. And Kristin, it never failed. Every time I sat, when I sat to write originally, I had nothing, no storyboard, no character, no Nothing.
So, will you tell us, was it a voice that was talking to you? Was it just a sense that was talking to you? Was it visual? How did the message come through?
That's a very good question, and it's all of the above. I saw the colours, and I heard the music, the beautiful music that was the surround, and I heard the dialogue like it was in my head. And there's a main character whose eyes through whom I am seeing. And his character, I'm telling his story, and he's showing me things. So he's taking me on this journey, a voyage into the different levels of the heavenly realms. And honestly, I was taking dictation, doing my best to describe the things that I saw. You say the the beautiful music, the colours were. Don't think the colours of the rainbow. Tenfold. I'm just
Yeah.
doing my best to describe what I saw. But the dialogue, it was interesting because if you read the book, it's the dialogue's almost gothic. The language is old English, and hmm, I'm, I'm just a regular Aussie dude. I don't speak like that. I don't think like that. Uh,
Yeah.
so in some ways that was a validation for me, but the whole experience was one of absolute trust. I knew every time I sat, I never knew where the story was going. I had no idea, but every time I sat, I was taken to the next part or journey.
Were you in a meditative state? Did you have to get into some sort of state of mind for you to receive the messages, or was it just a matter of sitting down at your PC and saying, okay, let's do this? What was required of you?
That's an interesting question. What I did was created the conditions for. It was like tuning a radio dial. So I would relax certainly, but in the morning I would arise and say to spirit, "Okay, at 1 o'clock you're on." Like give them a time frame because you got stuff, you got things to do during the day.
Yes.
So I said, "Okay, at 1 o'clock you're on, and you've got 2 hours." Now at that time I would shut out the externals. Anything that beeped and buzzed at me, uh, I went into seclusion,
Hmm.
and I quieted the mind. I was still, but it was not a thinking process. I didn't have to think anything. I listened. So, okay,
Yeah.
what am I going to write today? hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, got it, and it was there.
Well, I want to make sure that the listeners, because this is so unique. Number one, you did not clinically die. But prior to us hitting the record button, you shared with me, because I was asking, the fall was like a catalyst. It slowed you down, put you in a state where you needed to pay attention
hmm
to the nudge from the universe, from God, from spirit saying, you're not done. So
hmm
that is how it is connected to an NDE, but it was really simply the catalyst to position you well to receive this message and say yes to it.
Yes, that's a very interesting observation and very accurate. Uh, as we were describing off air, I'm certain of two things. And one is that the accident was an opportunity for a redirect to say, Stephen, you
Mm.
have chosen a pathway, but you can plant tomatoes if you so wish, but
Mhm.
there's a higher purpose for you. And I had to choose that. But the second uh, yeah, critical event was it was like being imbued with and the best description is a superpower, a talent, a skill that you do not know you have, but we, the universe, will give you. And that's exactly what happened. How I was able to write this thing. So I was given the ability to write this beautiful book and the words and see all the different things that I saw. That they were the two pivots, if you will, that enabled this
Yes.
book to be written.
Yeah. Amazing. Prior to the fall, because I'm imagining any old, I'll use, I don't know if it's Aussie, but it's certainly British, so bear with me. Any old bloke moving through the world. Suddenly they're hearing, and to use the term channeling, automatic writing, whatever term we're going to use. For a lot of people, it would freak them out. Were you a spiritual person before the fall? Would this have been the weirdest thing in the world? Or like, no, I've always kind of had the ability to have these different altered senses and connect with spirit.
I've been a Kristin, I've been a very fortunate man. I've been surrounded by beautiful people of spirit, and hopefully,
Mm,
over the years I learnt a lesson too. So I guess we could describe that as being ready to
ready. I love that.
receive, is the best way I could put it. Yeah, you've been conditioned in some ways, but as I say, I
Yes.
had purposely in mind turned away from that and said, okay, I'm old, I'm grey-haired, I'm now retiring. We're comfortable.
Yes.
Um, but that's not the way the universe works, to my understanding.
That's
As long
right.
as we draw breath, we have purpose. Uh,
Yes. So it's a really compelling story. What this character shows you exists on the other side.
mhm.
Please get us started, what you learned and what our audience should learn as well.
Oh my goodness! Now, let me tell you one thing though. Preface to that, what
Okay.
happened uh, about 3 months after the book has finished, and I'm in edit. It's in edit. I'm in edit mode, so I've read this story, this book, 100 times, and you start not to see things, of course, in the writings. But again, the voices in my head are going, Stephen, read it again. You've missed something. What? What the?
Mhm.
So I've read it again, and honestly, it was like reading something. Well, where you put a highlighter, one of those yellow or coloured highlighters across words. That's exactly how it was, and I saw embedded in the text, and I found 15, and I've called them the laws of heaven and earth, guidelines, isms that that I've got to tell you, it was extraordinary. So these laws have made such a profound difference to my life. It's like being embedded with a whole new range of, I don't know, skills or values or beliefs.
Mm.
Um, but and since then I've tried to embed them in one's life, in my relations and things. But that's how that happened. So I saw these laws of heaven and earth, uh, uh, and they just stood out to me. So that of its own was a total revelation.
Yeah. Laws of heaven and earth. I am dying for you to share them.
Oh my goodness. Well, I won't go through the whole 15. Let me just pick one or two. Okay. What you have cause to affect in your fellow man is what declares your place in heaven. So we are all one in spirit. So what I do to another, I do to myself. So let me give you an example of that to answer your previous question. What I saw, or one of the things that I saw, is uh, when we pass over, we go through this, and I saw them as these mists. So we go into these mists where one does, or a purgatory, if you will, where one does a life review, and this is not God's judgment. Not a big panel of old fellows with beards saying you're a good boy, you're a bad. It's like looking in the mirror of reflection, and it's what you cause to affect in your fellow man that declares what happens when you move into the heavenly realms. So what I saw and did my best to describe were these souls exited out of these mists, and they were dressed in these robes, neck to toe robes, And the robes were multicolored. And again, don't think the colors of the rainbow. This is colors almost beyond description. But some souls were dressed beautiful, like in gold, blues, yellows, beautiful colors. And they then moved up into, took a pathway that was uniquely yours upwards. Other souls came out of these mists dressed in Hessian brown, darky, yucky colours.
Okay.
and they had to follow a pathway down that was uniquely yours, or theirs, pardon. By way of example, what I saw, there was a soul that exited the mist, and she was dressed in these browny, dark colours, and she tried valiantly to move up to the higher levels by virtue of whatever was in her system of beliefs. But she could not. She was unable to move up to the higher levels. She tried 3 or 4 times to do so, but eventually was resigned to the fact she had to follow the pathway that was uniquely hers. But my understanding is, again, based on what we've done in life, in this life review, we then are robed in these colours that designate where we move to in the heavenly realms.
Yes.
And other souls are able to look at our robes, the colour and what's happening in the colours, and know exactly what we need in love. So they are able to serve, provide whatever assistance we need in that regard by virtue of what they're seeing in the colour of the robes.
Wow. This is not
Cool.
unusual.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, but it's not unusual. I have heard this multiple times and from multiple sources that there are levels, and it's not about good or bad. Like, you wouldn't look at a child who's in kindergarten and say, "Why aren't you in graduate school?" It just is what it is. That is where their soul has evolved to at that point in their soul. I don't know what to call it, a lifetime, but lifetime. And so, what
Yes.
I'm also hearing you say with one of the laws of heaven is that if there are themes that help people to evolve, like if you move through difficulty, trauma, challenging lifetimes, that you are exercising compassion and truth and service and anything that is a derivative of love, it helps the soul to evolve. And so it's
Yes.
the amount of lifetimes and it's the quality of love and service executed that help people, souls, elevate towards those more brilliantly colored robes. Am I tracking with you?
Perfectly described. That's exactly how I saw it, and that's what I saw happen. There was nowhere in the heavenly realms that I was taken to there was never an absence of love. Never an absence of love. There were angels everywhere to serve those that were ready to receive, both
Okay.
in the lower levels and, of course, into the higher realms. So this concept of, whatever we've done in life, we go to an eternal hellfire or eternal. This I did not see.
Mm-hmm.
No, it
Okay.
was, to me, it was not correct. We, as souls, we continue to evolve in the heavenly realms.
Yes.
Let me read one of the other laws to you. Number
Please.
2, the judgment of heaven is neither vindictive or eternal, but probationary and remedial. So that says to me that if we're open to the love, the receipt of the love, then we are able to move up through into the heavenly realms. And I must tell you that the main character, whose name is Athar, that's exactly what happened to him. He by virtue of his ability to forgive others for what they had done to him in life, he was able to move up into the heavenly realms, and it was through his eyes that I'm seeing what he showed me.
Through his eyes. Okay, so If someone is wearing a mucky brownish gray robe, what might that soul experience versus someone who's wearing, say, like a brilliant jewel toned purple, right? So, what are their experiences in, we're calling it heaven colloquially, just for common language, right?
Yes. Kristin, I'll give you uh, one of the very profound things that I saw was I'm with it and through Athar's eyes, and I'm with a master guide, and we go through this. Oh, the best I could describe it is like a, a, a field where bushfire has gone through, the smoke and the smell, and horrible place. And we're walking along this pathway, and we enter this portal, huge big portal, and you could feel that it's like a horrible place. And we walk into this through this portal, and what I saw were these huge vortices, spinning power vortices, and there was inside there were souls. They were trapped inside this vortex, and around each vortex were these beautiful angels, like angels in waiting, and they're standing there, and like I couldn't make this up in 100 years, but I've turned to I've turned to the guide and I said, "This is a horrible place. What is this?" And what he said were, "These souls are entrapped by choice." And think, this is not God's judgment, not God's wrath. That does not exist. God does not have. There's no wrath of God that I saw. It's all love. But they're entrapped by their own choice. Think the seven deadly sins: lust, greed, wrath. I can't remember the rest, but they trap the soul within. So it is a burden of choice. And as soon as the soul is able to be contrite, to repent and go, "Oh, please help me, God, see the light," which is always there, then they were removed from the power of this choice, and taken away by the angelic hosts to wherever they were meant to go. So they were an amazing sight to see. But that's what I saw and did my best to describe.
Well, for further validation, however unscientific this is, I've listened to two NDEs that come to mind. They were quote unquote hellish NDEs, and they essentially say the same thing. They were in these horrific, hellish experiences that they explained in detail. And it was when they recognized and felt bad about something they had done or thought or believed or perpetrated, whatever it was, and they asked for help. It was like whoosh, they were
That's it.
out.
That's it. That's exactly how I saw it. Yes, that's a perfect description. Yes, amazing, isn't it? So you're able to forgive yourself or forgive others or whatever it might be, and that
Yes.
releases you from the burdens of these travails.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so this is my language, not yours, but that is the hellish experience.
Mm.
Let's talk about someone who is more evolved wearing the more brilliantly colored robes. Were you able to see what they were gaining access
Oh,
to or experiencing?
yes. Gee, where do I start with that? Let me give you a description of uh, the most beautiful of us, and that's children. Uh, Taken again with the guide, we got taken into this building, and when I say building, don't think like a regular house or this is Greco-Roman magnificent marble alabaster structure, and there was this blue mist surrounding this building, and like I'm innocent, I don't know where I'm being taken, so I enter this building, and Kristin, I got to tell you, even now I get tingles when I remember the love that was in this building was like a a warm blanket on a cold night. It would just surrounded you. And so we go into this building, and there's all these rooms, and these beautiful angels, again, mostly dressed in like a blue coloured robes, and they're tending to these babes in arms, fledglings, children, young souls. And the love that surrounded was so magnificent. And I turned to the guy and said, what is this place? And it was described that every child who has passed from the earth realms early is so profoundly loved by the Heavenly Father and his angelic hosts. And that's where young souls are brought to their prime of their spiritual health in this place. And I remember asking the question, what happens if even if the bond between the parent and the child is somewhat fractious? Doesn't matter. Every child's soul is beautifully nurtured by the angelic host. No child was left behind, or and I mean, if the bond between the parent and the child is strong, well, that bond is a bond of love, and it will exist forever. But in this building, every child was brought to the prime of their spiritual health.
So when you saw children, were they wearing the beautiful robes then? You could tell. So they're in this particular Greco-Roman gorgeous alabaster marble building, and they're wearing these opulently, beautifully colors we don't
Yes.
have here. Okay.
Yes.
Were they part of a soul family? Because I hear that all the time, that we have thousands of people in our soul family that we continually reincarnate with, embodying different roles. Did you gain any access into that?
Yes. What I learned, Kristin, is love is the bridge. So if the love is strong between the kin, between the parent and or whoever, between those kin, because that is a bridge between here and there, wherever we are. So if that bond is there, it is eternal, and that's the link between so that love is not broken.
Yeah. And so I want to pause there because I think that's really important, because tell me whether this connects with what you learned or not. But so much of what I hear and read and so forth is that we create blueprints or contracts prior to our incarnations to say, especially if we're more evolved souls, I will encounter this adversity, and someone in their soul family with a bond of love will say, hey, I will step up and I will be the abuser, or I will be the one that makes that challenging, or I will be your antagonist in some way. And so they come here to Earth School and duke it out, so to speak. And then on the other side, it's like, oh man, thanks for taking one for the team to help you elevate and learn, to use your words, like forgiveness.
Yes.
Right? I was
Yes.
the difficult mother or daughter or whatever it was.
Yes, I think that's profoundly accurate. Yes, yes, and forgiveness is at the heart. It's one of the other laws. Forgiveness. Let me read it so I don't mess it up. Forgiveness is at the heart of your ultimate realization. So our ability to forgive ourselves and forgive others for what they've
Yes.
done releases. Let me give you a perfect example of that. Athar, this main character, just by way of background for your listeners, in his life he was abused under the auspices of the clergy. So, and he later on in his life he took his own life. So he was stuck in this purgatory by virtue of the shame and the guilt and the anger that he felt, and he couldn't see the light. What I saw, he was stuck in this decrepit house, dirt, and he would just like he was stuck in this mud. But there was a light eternally there that he could not see. And it was not until he was able to forgive the person that had perpetrated the heinous things in life, that released him into the heavenly realms, and it
I
enabled
see.
him to go be shown all these different things, and I'm seeing through his eyes. But his ability to forgive was the key.
That's really fascinating because what I've also learned is that so much of the learning actually takes place here. But
Mm-hmm.
what you're saying is that there is the capacity in these hellish experiences that can happen if someone's own thought patterns and feeling stuck in them. There
Mm-hmm.
can be an experience of fear and they can learn and evolve on the other side as well.
Oh, I think that's entirely accurate. That is
Okay.
exactly what I saw. We can
Okay.
we can continually to evolve by. I remember there. I think I wrote. Don't ask me what chapter, but there were souls there that were kind of content, happy to be of service in whatever levels that they were at. But there were,
Mhm.
in Athar's case, he was eager to evolve. He said, "Okay,
Mhm.
more, show me more."
Mm.
But there was a trust and a release that he had to go through. But this process of evolvement continues if we so choose. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is the gazillion dollar question that I'm sure you've been asked many, many times. What is it all for? Why are we cast into these ever reincarnating beings going through soul lessons and sort of this hierarchy of different lessons towards forgiveness and love? Source, God, Heavenly Father, you called it. Why?
Ah, now there's a profound question. Let me preface it with another law. Law number 12. To know that you are sacred is not to see new things in you, but to see yourself as you really are.
Okay, see yourself as we really are.
Yes.
And my
Ah,
stab at that is we are all part of the divine.
absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. We are, there is no separation. If ever, again, law number 13, if ever there was a separation between the divine and his children, then God's love would not exist.
And God is love.
Yes. Yes. That's it. It
And so
was,
the lesson is always love.
yes. And this love was all, it was all pervasive. Uh, I won't give away too much of the book, but right at the end, I got taken again. I'm not, when I say me, it was through Athar's eyes. So we got taken up to these higher levels. I got enfolded by this master soul, and we got taken up into the higher levels. It was like eventually like going up through treacle. Is the best way I could describe it, because he was taking a soul that wasn't quite ready, and we got up to a really, don't ask me how high, but it was a really high level. And there was a magnificent building, like, again, the Greco-Roman architecture. And there was a master soul there. And this master, oh, he's in the, I say he, and because it's limitation of language, he or she, it's the same thing. And it was him in the prime of his life, young, vibrant, beautiful. And he took me to this, like, top of a cliff or a mountaintop, and he showed me, right at the end of the book, it was like the colors and the music and that was all pervasive. So there were the higher levels of the the uh, the more exalted realms, and there were the darker colors underneath, but it was all love. There was never an absence of love in any of it. And music was a part of it all. This music infiltrated everything that is and was. That's what I saw right at the end of the book. It was such a magnificent experience to see it.
You know what we haven't mentioned yet? What is the book's name? What's the title?
The afterlife, a journey to. Now you know what will happen.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What did the music sound like?
Oh, and I haven't got a musical bone in my body, Kristin, but so I, God, how do I describe? What I can tell you is it was a part of everything. It was everything that is and ever will be. It was just music and colour. And it was divine up to the higher level. It was just kind of there. It was like it was a part of you.
Yeah.
But what I know is I probably I'm describing this within the limitations in my own head, so
Yeah.
I probably didn't do it justice. I'm trying to interpret it, but it was
Yeah.
it was love is the best I can describe it.
I hear the limitations of language are so frustrating. What I've heard in other people's NDEs is everything is creating music, whether it's a flower or a blade of grass or the fabric of someone's robe. There's a vibration of music that is
Hmm.
ever present. And it's
Yes,
like harmony and elevating and raising the vibration of love.
yes, that's. I've got to tell you that is exactly what I saw, and that is exactly what I felt. There were areas throughout the book we got taken to dales or forests and stuff, and everything was alive. Like you would stop by a tree, and the tree was full of life. The grasses were full of life, and were responding to you in love. That's the best way I can describe it.
Amazing. Amazing. So, another question. Some people are Christian, some are Muslim, some are Hindus, some are Buddhist.
Hmm.
What role does our religion play on the other side?
That's a very good question. The, in the description in writing the book, and mind you, I'm not a religious man. I have no religious background, but there were a couple of places I got taken to where souls were not entrapped is right, but they were stuck by virtue of what they believed in, which was erroneous,
Hmm,
but it stopped them from experiencing the beauty of the love that was there waiting for them.
interesting.
Yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. I got taken into a congregation where the souls were praying to an idol of religious significance, but their belief system entrapped them from seeing the love that was waiting for them to experience. So they were, because of what they believed, they were stuck, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And to move through the process of becoming unstuck, it's allowing in the love and asking for help, much in the same way with the people who were in the vortex and there are angels around them, but they're only seeing.
Yes, that's exactly in the two instances that I remember distinctly. There were angels waiting there for, and Athar helped these people, who was able to help these people release them from this stuckness, if you will. But there were
Yeah.
angels there waiting for them to release themselves from these
Okay.
erroneous
Yeah.
doctrine.
In erroneous doctrine. Yes. So share, if you will. Time goes by quickly. Will you share another one of the heaven? What did you call it? Laws of heaven.
Oh, oh yes. I've got to tell you, one of the ones that it is so vivid. I got taken into again with the guide, and there were these bells pealing, summoning this, and all these souls were coming into this huge arena. Think the think the Roman Colosseum, and you'll have a picture. And this Colosseum is filled with all these beautiful souls, and can you imagine all the colours? And they're all chanting the Om sound is reverberating around the arena. And so I'm sitting in the audience, and in the middle of the arena were these recliner lounges. And like I'm sitting there going, like, what the? And in walked these seraphim, beautiful, small angelic beings. And each seraph has got a charge of like a decrepit soul. The soul was malformed and ill, and each seraph guided their soul onto one of the lounges, and the lounge kind of enfolded them, wrapped them like a blanket. And I'm just writing this and doing my best to describe. And then in walked this, I can still picture him, this angelic being, beautiful white golden robes. And he stands in the middle of the arena and he holds up his hands and he takes the energy, all the beautiful love energy from the arena, and he starts to weave this magnetic ball in his hands. And it's like a spinning disco ball. And then from this ball shines this laser lights. These laser lights come and straight into the souls on the lounge chairs. And then after that, he's finished and he folds his hands back and he exits. And then each of the souls on the lounges gets up and they're healed. They are totally like healed. And I've turned to this guide and like, again, what's just happened?
Yeah.
And he said, sins imposed by others that cause a malady in that particular soul, you are released from those burdens. So if I do something bad to you, I don't cause you harm, or I don't know, say give you a bad drug or something that causes your soul harm, you are released from the burdens of that malady. You are healed from those burdens. Me, on the other hand, because with intent I've caused you harm, I need to bear the consequences of those in some other fashion. But you are released from the burdens of those melodies.
Okay, so now I think you are at a place where some people might be, what? Okay, so we've all not been perfect. Maybe we hurt someone in a relationship or we're deceitful. And so we go to the other side and we need to use your terms, bear the consequence. What is an example of a consequence one might face if they've intentionally caused someone harm?
And Kristin, I think the word intention is the key. If I intend to cause you harm with malice or whatever it is, then I would need to endure the consequences of that action. Where, as we said before, we are all one in spirit. What I do to you, I do to myself.
Yes. So what is a consequence? Like if someone was seeking revenge or if someone was deceitful for personal gain, right? What kind of consequence might a soul encounter on the other side as a result?
Now there's another good question. Let me give as best I can the description of what I saw. That right, Athar is evolved. He's such a beautiful soul. He's shown me all of these different higher levels. And there's another, let's call him a friend with him, that says, Athar, there's something you've missed. There's one thing you've missed. And Athar says, yeah, kind of, I know. I've been trying to ignore it, kind of. And he said, are you ready? And Athar said, okay, together we will do this. And what happened, they went down this place that was horrible, like a dark, can you imagine a tunnel of snakes and vermin and screaming, and it was a horrible, horrible place. And they had to support one another to go there. And who was at the end of that tunnel was the clergy person that had perpetrated the heinous things to Athar. And what this
Okay.
clergyman had done for himself was create he like a barrier. He didn't want, because of all the horrible things that he had done, he had cut himself off from the love that was there awaiting because he was afraid. He was afraid people were going to come and hurt him. By virtue of the
Okay.
terrible things that he had done, he'd created this environment where, don't come near me, I'm safe here. But Athar, with strength and forgiveness, was able to say, I forgive you.
Okay.
And that released
Released him.
that priest from the burdens.
So if Afar, is it A-F or T-H?
A-T-H-A-R.
Okay. Okay. If Athar did not forgive him, thus releasing him, if the clergyman, if the priest had shown some sort of contrition and said, please help me, would that have also released him?
I did not. That's not what I saw, but I could well imagine that to be the case. In what I saw, Athar was the key to helping him. Yeah, that forgiveness, to say, I forgive you.
Okay.
Yeah, and he Athar took this soul, this priest, out of the tunnel, and there were two, again, angels in waiting to
Yeah.
take this soul away.
Because this brings up a lot of complexity when I think about someone, let's say someone was an abusive parent and the children are still on earth and the abusive parent is over on the other side. And there's some complexity here because the abusive parent may have been the one to say, hey, I will play the role of the abuser so that you, souls who have elected to be the children, can learn the lesson of healing and forgiveness, whatnot. But now that abusive parent is on the other side, the people he abused are not. So could theoretically he be caught in that hellish landscape until the children come and forgive him? Or I hope what he can do is be forgiven or forgive himself and he's not caught there.
Oh, that is such a magnificent question. I got to tell you, and let me give you a perfect description of, again, what I saw and described. Athar is waiting. He's sitting with his friend, sitting, watching the mists and souls coming out of the mists. Yeah, these people that have recently passed over, and he's waiting specifically for one person, and that was his mother. You know, in his life, his mother was domineering and impatient and quite for what I can imagine, a very nasty person. And he went to meet her and basically said, I forgive you. It's okay. I love you. But she was not able to accept that forgiveness. What, and I paraphrase, which is, what, me? I did the best I could. You know, I was a good mother, this in denial.
Okay.
And therefore she had, and Athar said to her, I remember, again, I paraphrase, I hope you see the love that's waiting for you.
Yes.
Because I've done my best. That's
Yes.
basically what he said. But then this mother, this soul, dressed in brown, darky, horrible robes, had to follow a pathway downwards. She had no choice. She had to follow that pathway. So she was unable to accept the forgiveness that was being handed to her on a platter.
Okay. Okay. So like you're perpetuating your own hell.
Yes. Yes.
Which is what I feel like we do on this side so much of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
My gosh. Okay, so time is going by quickly. What I imagine, and tell me if I'm wrong, please, it takes courage to show up in the world. It takes courage to show up in the world and to say, hi, world, I had this deeply spiritual experience and I want to share what I have learned. Did it take a lot of courage for you to come forward, or was it like, you know what, I am in a different spiritual place. I know this will be good. If people judge me, they judge me. Let the chips fall where they may. I need to fulfill this soul's nudge,
Yes.
responsibility. What was that like for
Yeah.
you?
Oh, Kristin, I've got to tell you that's a beautiful question. And let me answer it in two ways. What are we? In April this year, I lost my beautiful mother. Now, she is mid-80s, and her death was, of great devastation to me and the family. And, prior, all my life, now I'm an old dude, all of my life I thought, hey, Mum, when you go, I'm not hanging around. I this is
Mm,
I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay. But since from the knowledge I've gained in writing the book and what I now know happens in the heavenly realms, I know where she's gone. I know the high levels where she's at. I know how to contact her in this place you can't see on the screen. And I know she's there all the time.
yes.
So that whilst one feels grief, that knowledge I've gained from writing the book has now become experiential. I live it. And what she says to me is that go forward. You've got a story to tell. Be empowered. So the grief one feels for the loss, physical loss, you miss the person, but that grief is totally empowering. It says you have got a job to do. Go.
Yeah.
I will be there and help you. Don't be afraid. Speak. That's exactly how I see it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And people, just like on the other side, they have a choice whether they heed it or they push it away.
Mm-hmm.
But you are the messenger, and it can cause profound healing in the way that you have experienced it, even with the grief of your mother. I'm so sorry.
Yes, absolutely. And I've got to tell you to know that we are never separate from the divine. So one of the other, we're probably short on time now, but the guardian angels are there for us all the time. We're never absent from that connection.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much here because there are councils of guides, there are guardian angels, there are departed loved ones. In the time that we have left, what practical tools can people start to practice or implement that you feel would connect them with the divine and love more intimately?
Oh my goodness, that's a magnificent question. Um, I don't want to be over self-promotive, but for me, the laws of heaven have been an absolute boon to one's life.
Okay.
They have changed direction. They give me a wider perspective on life. To know that we are never separate from the divine. We we only think we are.
That's right.
So we need to tune in, to listen, to ask questions of of the divine, because they're there. They will answer every question, every question. So we ask, what do I do about this? How do I fix? Where do I go? And know that the answer will be there. It will come to us in some form or another. That that intuition, that we wake up in the
Hmm.
morning and go, oh, I've got it. Oh,
Yeah.
or we talk to
Yeah.
somebody and they or read something and you go, oh, yes, that's it. I've
The
got it.
signs.
That's the divine speaking to us, the signs. Yeah. But it
Yeah.
happens consequential of us asking the question, wishing, knowing that connection is there. The answer will come.
I love it. I love it. Well, we could talk forever, but time is up. Thank you so much. How do people say the name of your book again, and how do people find you?
The book is called The Afterlife, A Journey To. Now you know what will happen. And probably the best, if people want to get hold of the laws of heaven and earth, just go to my website at www.stephen with a ph, stephenchong.com.au/downloads. It's all free. They can just download it for free. It's all good.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
But, yeah.
We're going to have all the links. We're going to have all the links available. If you're like, I don't have a pen and paper, just go ahead and check it out at our website and wherever you find this podcast. And thank you so much, Stephen, for sharing. You are just such a joy. I really appreciate it.
Kristin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
How I Made It Through is produced and distributed by EIQ Media, LLC. Elevate your emotional IQ with podcasts and content focused on overcoming adversity, leadership, mental health, entrepreneurship, spiritually transformative experiences, and more.